Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of Crack the Hack. We've got an exciting day of information for you today and learning around cybersecurity awareness. It's going to be a full hour of information, and there will be some time at the end for questions and answers. However, we encourage you throughout the course of the session to enter questions into the Q&A. If they're appropriate in the middle, we'll bring them to the attention of the presenters. If not, we'll handle them at the end. And if it's not something that is handleable by the group that's on today, we'll get you answers later in the future. So enter your questions early and often, and we'll get to them eventually. So today we're going to talk about the next 2 tenets of the cybersecurity framework: protect and detect, and have an email hijacking takeover and prevention demonstration. Before we get into all that, we want to talk about the leaders on our leaderboard. We actually have a tie for first place with 675 points with I'm a Good Guy and Kurtopotamus. So nice job, guys or girls. And keep up the contest, keep up the session attending, and the challenges that are there. The points are really racking up on the leaderboard. So nice work to those folks who are actively participating.
I want to pop in real quick. If you haven't done the challenge challenge 1, it's closed now, but challenge 2 will open up at 11. And I just want to make sure that you all remember it's cthevent.com. And that's all I'm saying. Now I'm going to pop out. Okay.
Thank you, Amber. There's usually something I forget, so thank you very much. I appreciate your attention to the detail. Moving forward, I'd like to introduce our partners today who are going to be doing all of the fun and the cool stuff. We've got a few folks here from Perch Security who we partner with for our security operations centers, looking at threats that are happening in real time and helping protect our clients out there. We've got 3 exciting folks who will do personal introductions when we get there, but Paul Scott, their Director of Threat Research, Wes Spencer, the Chief Information Security Officer, and Bryson Medlock, who's a Senior Security Analyst. They're going to put on a heck of a show for us today. Perch focuses on 2 areas that are prominent within the cybersecurity framework. First one is protecting your organization from threats and advanced threats that happen, and also detecting things. They're watching all of the traffic that's happening, the logs that are happening, and correlating all of that information to look for advanced threats that might be happening within your organization or about to happen. So they've got some super cool tools and some super smart folks in their organization that we take advantage of every day for all of our clients. Before we begin with Perch doing the cool stuff, you get to listen to me for one more second as we talk about today's bonus question. So the winner of this bonus question will win a $50 gift card at the end of the session. And the question is, how many phishing emails did Perch detect in the last 7 days? So Perch goes out and they watch for all of their clients, how many, they watch phishing emails come through. They can detect that stuff and prevent folks from falling victim to things like that. How many did they detect in the last 7 days? You put your answer in the chat box, put your guess in there. The closest person, or if there are multiple right answers, although that's somewhat unlikely, first one we receive will be the winner of the $50 gift card at the end of the session. So without further ado, unless Amber has anything to add, because I usually forget something around those, then I'd like to introduce Paul, Wes, and Bryson, who will be our hosts for today for the live email hijacking and takeover session. Welcome, guys, and thanks for coming to join us today at Crack the Hack.
Hey, thanks, Michael, for having us. Thanks, Amber. I'm really glad to be here.
Are you able to take over the screen? Oh.
Yeah, let me take over right now. Let's see. All right. Slideshow, are you with me?
We got you.
Yeah, so we have a very spooky presentation for you today. You know, we're getting really close to Halloween here, so Perchy's got on his vampire costume for Halloween. I hope you don't give you too much of a fright here. My name is Paul Scott. I am the Director of Threat Research at Perch Security. I've had a lot of security roles in the past. I've basically done about everything that you can do in a security operations center. Happy to be here with you today. Maybe Wes, Bryson, do you want to introduce yourselves briefly?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I'm the next one on the list, so I'll start. I'm Bryson Medlock. I'm a senior security analyst, but also a threat researcher here at Perch. I'm kind of wearing multiple hats right now. I've also run a lot of the CTF. So CTF is a capture the flag. It's like basically hacking competitions. We've done several this year and hope to do more. And then I've been doing a live stream where I talk about CTFs. I have guests on, we do walkthroughs, that sort of thing. So if you want to check me out on my Twitch channel, it's twitch.tv/CTF and cigars.
Hey, and you also have Wes Spencer here with you today. So thanks for having us from the Perch team. We're going to jump right into this in a minute, and I'll also be with you tomorrow on a panel session that we're looking forward to. So Paul, the only thing I'll mention as we jump in is, by all means, to the attendees, we've got the chat open, we're watching it, so we would love your feedback. Love your questions, and if we can answer some of that live as we jump in, by all means, we want to do it. So thanks for joining us today. Paul, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. All right, so Wes, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about how Perch works? I'm not sure that everybody here is familiar with Perch and exactly how we do what we do, but maybe it would be worth taking a second or a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So just very quickly before we jump into the content, because I think everyone, and myself included, are itching to see some of this live and in action. But when you think about Perch, we call ourselves a co-managed threat detection and response platform. And what we mean by that is we are a team of professionals that are watching networks 24/7, 365. We operate completely out of the US. We're all our SOC, our security operations centers in Houston, but we're headquartered in Tampa. And what we're all about is giving you visibility into your log data wherever that may be, in your network threat data, wherever you may be. So if you need to solve for SIM kind of things like security information and event management, if you're a bank, if you're healthcare, if you're regulated and you have to do something with logs, you get that check mark with Perch, right? But much more than just regulated industries, we've got companies from very, very large, 250,000 employees, so very, very Fortune 500 large, all the way down to very small doctor's office, clinic, single practitioner kind of practice. And so what we're about doing is giving you threat visibility into all of those devices, whether it's on premise, workstation servers, sensors, all that kind of stuff. It's work from home, which is really important in this day of COVID, giving you the ability to see threat activity wherever your employees go, and then also in the cloud. And cloud is what we're talking about today. So we're going to dive into this. And Paul, not to spoil your content here, but for the folks that are attending, I will tell you two of the biggest things that we are struggling with in the industry is obviously business email compromise is a big, big deal. And then just understanding what's going on in your threat landscape around ransomware, around all that kind of stuff. And cloud has a huge piece to play in both of these. And I would actually just love to get from the chat as we get started. Does anybody, what level of concern do you have with cybersecurity today? Would you say you have a high level of concern, a medium level of concern, or a low level? If you just pop into chat what that is for you, I would just love to get some feedback. Yeah, so high levels, we got a medium, and that's totally fair, right? Lots of highs. Still kind of piping through. Yep. So that's pretty much what we see. This is a big issue of importance, right? And so we're going to cover some of this. And what we want to do today, we're going to do something a little bit more unique. We're going to put our hacker hat on for a minute. And Paul, as I get ready to turn it over to you, we're going to show you from the bad guy side how these things happen. One thing that Sun Tzu said like 3,000 years ago when he wrote his Art of War book was, you must know thine enemy. And we're going to give you a little picture into that. So this is who Perch is. This is what we do. And Kyber team, thank you so much for letting us join you today. They are awesome partners of ours. Man, we love Kyber. They really know what they're doing. What a great team. So Paul, take it away, my friend.
Thanks, Wes. So yeah, as Wes pointed out, business email compromise is a big problem for organizations. A lot of you have probably moved your Office products to the cloud. I mean, show of hands or in the chat, are you currently using Office 365? Let's see if we've got some comments there. We got some chats, Wes. Yeah, so a lot of people using Office 365, it looks like. So one of the problems as we move our Office workloads to the cloud is that Microsoft is really not responsible for securing them. So it's really still on us. It's really on us to protect that data. We think that just because we've moved to the cloud, okay, Microsoft's going to handle everything. That's really not true. And if you look at their Microsoft shared responsibility model for security, they kind of paint that picture for you, and they're not hiding that. So they're responsible for the cloud infrastructure, but access and control of the data that resides in Office 365 is on you to protect and detect unauthorized access to that data. And so, you know, as we move our workloads to Office 365, we have to be making sure that we have ways to monitor these workloads for threats. And that's exactly what Perch has done with our Office 365 integration. We were able to pull logs from Office 365 or now M365 and detect threats going on in that data. And we're going to show some of that today. So before we get going too much further, I got a bonus question from Amber here. What's one thing that you can do to protect your email from being compromised? And you can answer that in the chat. I don't think there's a lot of wrong answers here. There's lots of things that you can do. But if you want to just go ahead and drop those in the chat, I think Kyber is going to be tallying up the scores for their contest here. So, you know, what is something that you can do to protect your email or your organization's email from being compromised? And I won't pause too long here. We can kind of circle back to that. So what are some of these threats and risks that you have to be monitoring your Office 365 workloads for? You know, of course, one of the big things that we're going to be talking about here today is business email compromise, but additionally, you know, malicious Office documents are coming through that email. People are credential phishing or spear phishing, very targeted phishing your organization. There's potential insider threats, you know, sometimes purposeful and sometimes unpurposeful. And then additionally, a lot of sensitive data is in those Office documents in your OneDrive and stuff like that. You know, if that data got out, that could be a data loss event for your company, and that could be a compliance or regulatory concern. But business email compromise is what we're going to be heavily focused on today. The FBI put out in April an alert, a public service announcement about business email compromise, specifically in cloud environments like Office 365. And they were estimating that, you know, in the 5-year period there where they had statistics, $2 billion was lost through scams and other business email compromise scenarios.
Yeah, and Paul, one thing I want to add to this, so I have a long experience in banking and also working along Department of Homeland Security. I've served on a couple of committees with DHS, and one of the things I know when the FBI and or the DHS put out one of these PSAs, this is their way of saying, hey, we've seen this enough that you really need to take it seriously. So you'll never see a PSA from the federal government if it's something like emerging and they're not sure about. In other words, this has become so systemic and such a major issue that we've really got to take action. And so that's what these PSAs are all about. And I'll tell you guys too, from our perspective, the top 2 threats that every organization should be most concerned about, and the top 2 threat outcomes that Perch sees the most are business email compromise and systemic ransomware. And when I say systemic ransomware, I mean, you know, not just one machine, but the entire organization has been shut down through ransomware. And so business email compromise is continuing to grow. We were kind of curious to see if it would go down in trend or up in trend throughout 2020 and into 2021. And our threat intelligence is absolutely seeing that this is picking up all the more. And the damages are just extremely high from this. So just wanted to kind of point that out, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Wes. And I'll point out something too, is like, you know, it takes attackers a little bit of time to catch up to the technology that businesses are moving to. So as you've moved to Office 365, they have followed, they're maturing their capabilities in these areas and understanding how to operate these platforms. So, you know, definitely I think that's part of this trend up in this PSA here. So what is a business email compromise at a high level? You know, maybe a user receives a phishing email, they give up their credentials into that phishing site, and then a number of bad things can happen. And that's what we're really going to be focusing on, is like, what are these bad things that could be happening, and what do these phishing emails look like in the phishing sites themselves? So we're going to play through a scenario today I'm going to be playing the role of your narrator and cybersecurity analyst. Bryson is going to be playing the role of the hacker. And Wes has volunteered to be Fish today. He's going to be the company employee that gets their credentials compromised and starts off this incident for the organization. So a lot of these malicious emails or phishing emails that you get, they blanket the entire internet. Basically, if they can find an email address, they're just going to send some phishing emails to it. But other attackers are a bit more targeted, and those attackers are usually a bit more successful. In spear phishing emails that target your organization very specifically, the attackers are using business intelligence services and social media services to identify the targets and kind of enumerate your employees and understand those employees. So they might be using websites that maybe even you use in your sales organization to find prospect organizations. They're prospecting too. So they're in Zoom info, they're looking up, based on NASIC codes and things like that. They're looking up different industries, what organizations are in those industries, how big your company is, how much revenue you have, where you're located, etc. Additionally, they might pivot from some of these business intelligence tools to LinkedIn, maybe figuring out every employee that works at your company and what key employees they want to target. And then additionally, they'll go down and actually do research on those people that they want to target at those organizations, look into their social media and see what their likes and dislikes are. We know Wes likes barbecue. We know Wes likes whiskey. Maybe he's more likely to click on something like that. So, hackers will find some context that makes things interesting for users to click on and leverage that in order to kind of carry on their business email compromise objectives. So we're going to take a look at some of the scenario. Let's see let's see how this looks from a hacker's perspective when they're doing some of this recon.
This company looks like the perfect target. Small businesses are easy prey. They'll click on any link. Let me add them to the list and I'll send out my phishing bait to the masses.
So Wes, it looks like you got an email here.
I sure did. Yeah, let's take a look at this. I want you guys to take a look at this with me, the audience. You kind of play my role with me, okay? So if you got this email now, obviously, you know the scenario here, but put yourself in the middle of a really busy day, right? It's 11:30. You're getting ready to hit lunch. Your tummy is growling. You're getting. Oh yeah, and hope you guys liked our hacker laugh. By the way, you're going to get more of that in just a minute. But does anybody see any red flags in this email? I mean, obviously, we've made a couple that are pretty clear of something that might be a red flag. But I want you guys to use the chat and tell us some red flags that you see. But also put your hat on of just a regular employee. You're busy and there's some things that stand out here, right? I mean, hey, it's got my full name. It does say something about corporate security policy. Yeesh, that's a little scary, right? That is definitely something that would probably catch a lot of people. You see the time sensitivity here, end of business day on yesterday. Oh no, now I'm late on this. Yikes. And so you guys are pointing out a couple things, Isaiah and Sam, definitely good things right there. Sam is saying, hey, the sender email is suspect for sure. But, again, if you're busy and we're kind of being funny with the Gmail account, oftentimes, as you guys know, it might be a little bit more sneaky, but somebody saw this earlier. Do you guys see the real insidious part? That domain looks legit, doesn't it? At first glance, your eyeball sees it and you're like, yep, that's good. But you'll notice that it is slightly malicious there. So, okay, good. So let's go ahead and move forward, Paul.
So let's click that link, Wes.
Yeah, so I clicked the link, right? Because I'm busy. I wasn't really paying attention. I click that guy, I pop in my email, and okay, all looks good. So here we go. I'm going to pop in my password as is normal, and we're going to ignore two-factor, of course, in this case, right? But it didn't. My password didn't work. What happened? Oh, that's a little strange. Let me try it again. I'm going to go ahead and type my email in again. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to hit the next button once I finally kind of type this correctly. There we go. Hit next. And okay, I don't know why it didn't work last time, but I'm going to pop my password in again, and I'm going to hit sign in.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, I'll point out one thing here is that I got this kind of on a loop for this section of it. The domain, if you check this domain, there's a small typo in this domain. It's not actually microsoftonline.com. And what they want to do when they're redirecting you back to the real site, and if you check this out after Wes puts in his password here, it redirects back to the real Microsoft Online, because the next time Wes enters his password, it's actually going to work, and he may not realize that he got phished. And hackers will do this all the time. They'll redirect. Hacker, do you do this all the time?
All the time.
Yep. So hackers do this all the time. They redirect back so that you don't maybe realize that you got phished. Maybe it was just, oh, I don't know what happened there, but maybe I typed my password in wrong. So, Wes may not realize he got phished here, but he definitely got phished. And let's see what that looks like from the attacker's side.
All right, I'm ready for my first victim. Looks like somebody clicked on the link.
And so as you can see in there, I might replay this one more time. As you can see in there, we've set up a web server to catch that credential. So as Wes has put in his credentials there, it's actually siphoned it over to an attacker's web server. We see Wes Perch CTF on Microsoft.com. That's the login here. And after that, you can see the password. That might actually be the real password. So if you wanted to try to log into Wes's account, you might be able to do that right now. But anyway, yeah, this is what it's going to look like on the attacker's side. They're going to be looking for some way to catch that credential.
Oh, yeah. All right. I've got a user. I've got a password. Let's check out his Office 365 account. Log in here. Let's see if this password works. It works. I'm in. All right, now that I'm in, let's create some persistence. So I've got access to his account. A good way to create persistence is to create a mail forwarding rule. So let's set this rule up. That way any email that comes into Wes gets forwarded to me. Even if he changes his password, I can still see all of his email from today till infinity, because he'll never figure this out.
Yeah, and this is something that we see hackers do all the time. One of the first, I would say, top 3 things that they do when they get in is set up some sort of forwarding rule to get access to that stuff. And you can see here the forwarding rule that was created. Hacker rule, definitely not suspicious. But yeah, this will be done to kind of gain persistence over the account. That they don't have to log in and create so many logins from maybe non-standard locations and things like that. So this is probably one of the top 3 things that we see attackers do when they get access to an Office 365 account.
Yeah, Paul, I want to add a couple things to that as well. So what we're doing is we're showing you a very common use case of what bad guys do. Now, obviously, like Paul mentioned, they wouldn't call it hacker rule. They wouldn't send it to toteshacker Gmail. It'd be something more insidious than that. But this is probably one of the top 2 or 3 things when we see business email compromise. One of the most common things is a new forwarding rule. And so what does that mean for us in designing a cybersecurity program? Well, one of the things you need to have visibility into is activity like this. It may be totally normal that somebody has a new forwarding rule set up. It may be malicious. And so the goal is to say, hey, we need to know anytime an organization sets up a new outbound forwarding rule or other signs of potential threat activity, we need to detect that. And we need to take a look at it and put eyes on it and say, hey, is this normal? Okay, cool. The user's going on vacation or whatever it may be. It's normal activity. Or whoa, this one is definitely malicious and something we should take action on. And we can't secure it unless we can see that activity.
Yeah, and so definitely one of the things here is like you may allow in your organization emails to be forwarded outside of the organization's domain. That may be acceptable for your organization, but if an analyst is looking at this and they see, oh, we're forwarding it to some domain that's not the user's domain or some free email service, we'll probably look at that a little bit more suspiciously, a little bit more closely. So after the attackers got some persistence, they might continue on their objectives. Let's see what Hacker Bryson's going to do next.
Now that I've got some persistent, let's see if we can spread our influence. Yeah, this looks good. People always trust emails from someone they know inside the organization, especially from an existing email chain. Yeah, let's update the final version of this process. I'm going to attach my own specially crafted document here. Feel free to open it. Make sure you enable your macros.
Yeah, so definitely another thing that we're seeing hackers do once they get access to your business email is kind of find an existing thread with a file attachment, maybe sending an update out on that thread. When you get a Office document from outside the organization, you're going to be a little bit more suspect of it. But if it's coming from within your organization and it's part of a conversation thread that you are already having, the chances of you opening that and following the instructions, like enabling macros on that document, you're more likely to follow them, especially if it has to do with, some process that you need to be compliant with. So we see this frequently, and, our threat intelligence tells us that it's happening widely. So, definitely be looking out for stuff like this. So I'm going to go to, I'm going to actually hop over to Perch at this time and show you kind of what all of this looks like from an analyst perspective. And then we're going to take it even a little bit further and go past Office 365. So bear with me 1 second while
and while you're doing that, I want to say a couple things. So a really good question just came in, and I want to just answer that. So, someone's asking, what do I do if these emails have been forwarded? What happens in a case like this, right? And so this is where Kyber and Perch work together. We're here to help you. We understand as an organization, you're doing what you're good at, which is whatever your business is. If you're healthcare, you're healing, right? And so for us, our perspective is to say, hey, look, if something like that happened, we're going to help you take a look, determine, is it malicious, and what does the log show of what happened? There's a story in every attack, and we're going to show you a story on this one. But what we'll do is we'll work together. That's what Kyber is here for. It's what Perch is here for us to do the investigation and help you and say, this is what we're seeing. This is the extent. This is the severity. These are the things that we need to do in response, right? And so, again, I want to keep coming back to this. I'm going to be a broken record here, Paul, but we can't secure what we can't see. And so, what we're really talking about here is giving you that visibility into those activities that may or may not be malicious. And if they are malicious, then we see that and we say, what do we do about it, right? It's great to have all these preventative controls in place, like spam controls and antivirus. Those things are great. But at the end of the day, at some point, those things fail, right? We know they fail. And so our goal here is to say, when they fail, what do we do? How do we pick this up and investigate and take a look? So Paul, go ahead. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. So yeah, we've got this is the same UI that a Perch security analyst would access to analyze some of these alerts. We can see here that approximately 15 hours ago, I put these into an investigating status when they came in yesterday and last night. But yeah, we can see here a couple of events related to Office 365 just right off the bat. We've got a login from outside the United States, and also we can see an inbox forwarding rules created. Could be somebody traveling, could be somebody going on vacation, could be good, could be bad. So let's take a look. I've opened up one of these over here just to save us a little bit of time. And so in this one, we can see that at 1711 or 511, it looks like the user Wes logged in from an IP address that's associated with Israel. So I know, knowing Wes, that he's actually located in Florida, and he hasn't talked about any vacation recently. So I don't believe that he's actually in Israel. Additionally, by going back and looking at other logons from Wes in the past, an analyst might pivot around this, look up Wes's username, and look for other login activity. And we'd see that, maybe recently he had logged in from somewhere in the United States. And so, this is actually something that's very suspect. And this is the full record that you can see here. Lots of information here, but it's summarized up at the top. We can even see, looks like he's using an Apple product. I know Wes is a Windows user. So this looks totally uncharacteristic for Wes. This is definitely suspect.
And Paul, one thing I want to say too, like I'm probably reading into a couple of your minds here, and you're like, "Whoa, this log stuff is intimidating. I don't know how to do this." Keep in mind what Paul is showing. Paul's showing you this from the analyst perspective, right? So Perch and Kyber working together, we have 24/7, 365 threat analysts. And so what we're doing here is Paul is showing you, he's putting the hat on of a Perch threat analyst that's looking at this log data for you on your behalf. You don't ever have to check this out. We're just showing you kind of the back end or the internal shop talk, so to speak, of what we would do and how we would see these threats.
Yeah, this is definitely the co-managedness of Perch. You can get in here and look at this stuff, but by no means do you have to. It's great for looking at what happened in the past, but it's Perch and Kyber's responsibility to kind of handle all this for you. So let's look at the data related to this other alert. Okay, so we can see that just 1 minute after we have a login from outside the United States, from Israel for Wes's account, that a forwarding rule is created for Wes. Oh, and there's that hacker rule. So let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. We can see here in the parameters section that the email is now being forwarded to this Gmail address. And so, that's suspicious as well. So somebody has accessed Wes's account outside of the country and then added this rule. I'm not going to pivot through these logs because we are a little short on time, or we're running a little short on time. But I wanted to go back and look at some of these other alerts. Now, from what Hacker Bryson showed us earlier, we know that he found that email thread and sent a reply on it. And that's what you're seeing here, is that one of those people that received that email opened it up and enabled the macros. And as a result, some bad stuff happened. You don't need to know what all these things mean, but as security analysts, we do. And so what this is telling me is that we've downloaded some additional payloads. This is a beacon out to a command and control server. And then we do see some LokiBot related user agent traffic in that beaconing. So it definitely looks like that special document that Hacker Bryson sent out was actually a malicious document that has taken over control of one of these machines. You can see that the machine that opened it is this 192.168.0.18, which is reaching out to the United Kingdom, Indonesia. So this is the infected machine right here now. And then we can also see here that this infected machine, the same machine, is now reaching out to the domain controller. So if you're not familiar with the zero logon vulnerability, it is a recently disclosed vulnerability. This is a critical vulnerability. If you're not patched against this vulnerability, it allows for a privilege escalation to domain administrator to take over that domain administrator account, to reset that password and take it over. So basically the story here is that from a phishing email, the user's password was taken, the hacker got access to the account, they used that access to send malicious documents out to the organization, and as a result, somebody opened that document and the domain was compromised. That means that this attacker now has complete control over this organization. At this point, just out of curiosity, how many people would detect this chain of events today? Do you feel confident that you would see some of this stuff?
Yeah, give a yes or a no in chat. Yeah, okay, good. So we're getting some yeses and some nos coming in. And I know these are all coming into the panelists, so almost all are no. A few yeses, which good. If you have a yes, that's wonderful, really, really good. Hey, a couple of things I wanted to chat about too, Paul, as things are coming in. So one of them is a really good question that came in from one attendee. They said, you may have mentioned this earlier, but what's the purpose for hackers forwarding email? What are they looking for? And the answer to that is, and Paul, I want you to elaborate on this too, but the answer to that is it could be all sorts of things, right? In some cases, they're looking to commit business email compromise. They're watching all these emails coming in and out, especially if they target someone that has access to financial payment systems and they're waiting for an invoice to come in. And once they see that invoice, they may slip into that and say, oh, no, hey, got that email. Actually, it doesn't need to go to this payment address, it needs to go to that payment address. Instead of $500, it's $1,200. Or maybe they send in a new fake invoice that's never been seen before for $150,000. And if you're a larger org, you may have someone that sees that email, it seems legit, and they pay it. So they're actually just watching for the right opportunity. In other cases, and I've seen this happen before, this is really scary. Some banks still allow you to do a password reset over email, and then they have the two-factor over email. And so what they'll do is they'll use access to that email, reset your banking credentials. The new two-factor check will come in. They'll use email to do it. Now they have full access to your banking system. And at that point, nasty things happen. And it begins and commits from the email itself and using the forwarding rules. In other cases, you'll see different things that may happen, right? But they're using the email forwarding rule to get access to your email to see all of the things coming in and out of your email. So that's a really good question. Paul, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd also add that, like, they want to be watching that email. They want to be monitoring that email account, waiting for that perfect opportunity, but they don't want to be logging in every 10 minutes, every 30 minutes, every day, and creating logs that we can use as defenders to notice the activity. So by just getting in there once, setting up that inbox forwarding rule, they can continue to monitor that email account without being connected to it, visibly in the logs. So it just reduces the amount of noise that they make.
Yeah,
This
good.
is one
And then
login, as long as they don't have Perch.
you heard it from the hacker himself. That's awesome. Hey, another question that came in, I'm going to answer live because it's really, really good. So one person's asking, can phones be hacked if you're checking your email from your phone? Paul, you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're using your phone and you get one of these phishing emails and you go and type in your username and password, yeah, absolutely. It is possible that they could also, one of these malicious documents that they send out internally could be targeting phones. There's definitely malware out there that's focused on phones. So if this attacker was very much focused on compromising mobile devices for an organization, yeah, that could absolutely happen.
And then yet another good question. Man, you guys are awesome with questions. So this one's really good too. They say, out of curiosity, do you ever attribute any of these attacks to an established APT group? And one thing we haven't really talked about much today is you're actually talking to Paul Scott, who is our director of threat research. And so Paul, you are actively involved in tracking and correlating threat actor groups, that sort of thing. I will say, sometimes threat actors, they're much more publicized for those that run ransomware. Those that run business email compromise and what we see here are usually less attributed. They're a little bit quieter behind the scenes. But Paul, you want to add anything else, since this is your day job at Perch?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, with some of these families and things like that, we can absolutely attribute them to different threat actors. Like when we see Emotet incidents, there's really one group that's running Emotet. Additionally, different ransomwares, sometimes there's one group that's responsible for running that. So yeah, we are able to attribute some of this to APTs. And additionally, with our focus, we've been able to identify a few threat actors, even down to identifying their real identities. I think there was one case, Bryson, where we had infiltrated a botnet and found through some GitHub and social media sites, we actually found links to the real identities of these hackers. It was one person out of Canada and another one in France. So yeah, we actually do a lot of this. I think over the last year, we've identified and named 3 different persistent threats for MSPs. So yeah, we're absolutely looking into that.
And just to add a little bit, in case for those that may not be technical, what we're talking about here is understanding who our adversary is, where they may reside, how they like to act, who they go after, what targets, and how do they establish those targets. And so, for example, you may have, Chinese hackers are usually much more interested in intellectual property, whereas like Syria, Croatia, North Korea, many of those others are actually more interested in financial damages and financial outcomes. And so understanding who your enemy is and understanding how they operate is very, very, very important. And by the way, I published a link if you're curious and just want to read a little bit more about like us uncovering one group at Perch. This makes us really happy. Like one of the things that makes me really smile at the end of the day is when we're doing good in this world, right? And if you want to see one, there's Dark Reading. They're a really good news agency that published something about a year ago of a takedown and some research of a criminal group called Takeover. So feel free to check that out if you'd like.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. So yeah, this scenario could have gone any number of ways. A lot of times business email compromise is going to go towards that wire fraud, but it could additionally go towards, it could also go another direction. So for those of you that said, yes, you would have detected some or all of this kill chain, great. In this scenario, you've actually prevented ransomware at your organization. After this attacker, it's totally possible. We've seen Conti ransomware doing this. After getting some level of access to the organization, they're using zero logon to escalate privileges or any other privilege escalation, really. And then using the domain controller to push out software to all connected hosts. And so that software package could be ransomware. So in this scenario, if you've said, yes, you could detect this, congratulations, you've stopped a ransomware incident at your organization. If you said you were unable to detect this in this scenario, you likely would have had every machine and domain connected machine in the organization ransomed. So this, it's very important. You can see here that, they've been able to pivot basically through, your cloud into your real organization. And, without being able to monitor the cloud and the network and the logs off those machines, it really takes all of those pieces to be able to tell this whole story. So that's, part of the importance of monitoring this. Yeah, so anything else you want to add, Wes? I think we just have like 3 more minutes.
Yeah. We do. Okay. So I'm going to say this really quickly then. So what we're trying to illustrate to you here, I think the most important takeaway is, threats are not push button, get attack, right? I know in the movies, they make it seem that way. They hit some button and then the virus uploads and all the things happen, but it's not that way in the real world. In the real world, it's one thing leads to another, leads to another. One weakness leads to a new weakness, leads to, think of it as a crack in the armor, and that crack gets bigger and bigger and bigger until something really bad happens. And so this is what we're doing at Perch, and this is what we're doing at Kyber. Kyber is, they've designed for you a very solid information security program, and one of those things that is involved in that is saying, hey, we've got the preventative defenses in place. We have the castle and the moat, so to speak, but at some point, bad guys get over that. How do we know they get over it? We have watchmen that are watching over, and so we see the ladders go up, or we see the bad guys assembling outside. The watchmen are saying, we see something about to happen that are going to prevent or get through the preventative defenses. And that's what Perch is doing in behalf of Kyber, is we're watching over all of this. And I did see from Michael, he says we have a few more minutes free as well.
I'll add something to that too, Wes. Yeah, we really appreciate our partnership with Kyber. So at Perch, we're really doing this detection, right? And with a lot of organizations, we operate directly with the organization. We would tell them about this. We'd escalate this to their attention. You can see here, we can set this to an escalated status, and I can provide a note about this activity. And where Kyber really adds value and where we appreciate their partnership is that they're able to respond to this on your behalf. So in this first part of this incident, we would have actually escalated this to Kyber. Kyber would maybe reset this user's password, notify Wes that he had been phished, remove the inbox forwarding rule, and maybe take some other steps to help protect the organization, and maybe even prevented this follow-on. We could have looked into the activities that hacker took when he logged in, see that he replied to that thread with a file, and go and delete that email from the user's inbox. So Kyber really adds a lot of value to these types of incidents. That's not something that Perch is going to do for you. We're not going to go log into your Office 365 and reset a user's password, but Kyber will. So, we work closely with Kyber to respond to these types of incidents. All right, well, I guess maybe in the last couple minutes here, we can open it up for some questions. Feel from the audience or any other questions?
Yeah, let's do that. So feel free to either use the Q&A or we're monitoring chat. So if you've got a question for us, we would love to answer any other questions you have or fill out any details that you may be missing. There's actually one that just came in for the Kyber team. Michael, I thought I might let you answer that one from Andrea. That's probably more in your wheelhouse than Perch's.
Hey, Paul and Wes, do you mind if we do, are you guys done with the demo part of it? Because I have a couple of things that I want to do before we do an open Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll share.
Yeah.
Stop
I mean,
the
yeah,
share.
basically I can click around some more and show some people some more stuff, but yeah, we basically come to the end of the scenario.
Okay, so before we open it to, because I think we're going to have a lot of questions on this, let's do a couple more things first. So let me take this back over.
Well,
Always
while
super slow.
while Amber is sharing that screen, to answer the question that came in, the question was with regard to whether Kyber worked in home networks or only in business networks. We are primarily focused on business networks and don't do a lot for individual home networks. However, we're happy to answer some questions if someone is having specific concerns and try to direct them, because ultimately our goal is to try to stop all of this, or at least prevent as much of the damage as we can for people and for organizations. So thank you for that question. And if you have some specific questions afterwards, reach out through Amber and we can talk about that.
Actually, we've got a really, really important question here. Michael Chamberlain wants to know what Hacker Bryson is having for lunch. He'd like to hear Bryson in his own voice tell us what he's having for lunch. Do we still have Hacker Bryson with us?
He doesn't want to tell us.
Sorry, yeah, I'm here.
Wait, you got to do the hacker voice.
Okay, yeah, I had to turn that back on. I haven't decided what I'm having for lunch yet.
A whole bunch of business email compromise?
Yes, I'm going to nom on all your emails. Maybe have a glass of scotch while I'm at it.
Thanks, Michael, for that question. That's fun. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so this is back to me on the slide. Sorry, I got distracted by the fun voices and everything that was happening here.
I mean, I was hoping he was going to have like a tuna sandwich or something. That'd be pretty fun for a hacker to say.
Okay, so today we have a special offer going out to all attendees. One of the ways that these hackers, in addition to being able to phish you, is being able to get your credentials online, because they may wind up out on the dark web. So even if your organization wasn't compromised, let's say, for example, that Staples was compromised and you used the same, your business email and the same password on the Staples network that you use for your Office 365 mail. Well, they may be able to get those credentials off the dark web if they're out there for sale, and be able to go through and compromise your box in that way as well. One of the things we do is that we will do dark web scans to see whether or not there are already compromised credentials out there. For our clients, we monitor it in real time. But if anyone out there today is interested in us doing a dark web scan at no cost to you, just type DWS in the chat box, and Amber will get those lined up. So we'll get you a scan, get you the results of anything that might be out there. Wow, they're coming through quickly. I guess that's the special offer that everybody enjoys. Additionally, that will earn you 250 points in the contest today. So the 250 will be added to your running total as you go through and we get these dark web scans done for folks. So that's the special offer for today.
Hey, Michael, just one question from Paul. Okay, there you go. I was going to say, when do we reveal the answer to the phishing emails?
We reveal it now. And Amber, can you IM me the final winner? I know you had a preliminary thought, but we got a lot of answers back, and most of them were way lower than the actual answer. The actual answer is 286,000 in the last 7 days. And
okay, hold on. I got to scroll through a lot of things, so give me a second.
Amber will come up with the closest answer. We had no one anywhere near that number, which just goes to show you how persistent this is and how pervasive. phishing emails are. Perch looks at a lot of logs out there, but they don't have 286,000 customers. It means there's a lot of phishing I'm assuming, guys, you don't have 286,000 customers. So that means there's a lot of these going on against every organization every day.
So we had a question in the chat. How many clients and how many employees does that come from? Wes, I don't remember the last number count on the Office 365 users, but it was over 100,000. And that's across over 2,200 organizations.
So the lowest guess was 100, and the highest guess was 732,331. So you see that I'm working with a very wide range of guesses right now, but I think and I'll confirm this at the end, but I'm pretty sure that the winner is I'm a Good Guy, who also won the gift card yesterday. So you're super good at guessing these things with the guess of 100,000 phishing emails. So it was a big gap, but from what I can tell, I'm pretty sure that's the winner.
Congratulations, I'm a Good Guy. You're really raking it in here. So nice work.
Racking in the dollars there. You got $100 gift card now.
Nice to keep it going. Hey, I saw another question in the chat. It went away when everybody started guessing things here, but the question is, why would we remove the rule the hacker created after changing the user's password? I have my answer to that, but does somebody from Perch want to answer that, since you guys are on the stand today?
Yeah, I mean, so basically we want to get rid of that forwarding rule because we don't want them to maintain any persistence to that account. Even if the password was reset, that rule would still be in place. And so every email received by that account, that inbox, would be forwarded outside the organization. That's data that you don't want leaving to the attacker.
And I'm going to lay a follow on there. Is there any intelligence we get from the information on where it was forwarded, the address it was forwarded to, that might help us identify the threat actor or anything to that effect that might help prevent some of this stuff in the future, as you guys were talking about before?
Yeah, I mean, so we definitely, with that email address, we might be able to correlate that to some other threat intelligence. It would also, we could help publish some of that research to the community to alert others. But if we see, since we actually have visibility over 2,200 organizations, if we see something happening in one organization, we're actually going to be looking for it across all of them. So, if this pops up bad in one environment, now we can know to look out for it in all the other ones.
Awesome. And the follow-on question that was asked is, which organization would do that? And the answer is Kyber would be the one. Kyber is the one who has the access in to do that for the clients that we manage and have these services set up for, and would work with the client specifically on getting them, reset, logging out any logged in sessions, because even if you change your password and someone else is already logged into the mailbox, that doesn't necessarily throw them out. So you have to make sure you push out other sessions that are there, log out anybody who's going before you change the passwords, and lock out those accounts. So there's several steps that we go through when something like this happens to make sure that we're resecuring those assets. I'm scrolling through and I don't see any other active questions in here. If anybody has one that didn't get addressed and it wound up scrolling too far back, if you would just not mind posting it again, we'll jump on that question or any other new questions. The question that just came in was, what about password admin service companies? And I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I understand the question. Susanna, if you can just clarify what specifically you're asking about. You're asking what these companies would do, or?
I think this one, am I muted? No. I think this one might pertain to the question that was earlier answered via text. I could be wrong, but Wes answered it via text. Maybe you want to embellish that, Wes, the very first one that said, talking about Proofpoint.
Oh, yeah, perhaps. So there was a user that, oh wait, let's see, what about password admin service companies that recently secured Dashlane to, oh, right. Okay, I know what this question is about. And Kyber, I'd like your input on this too. So this question is sort of about like password managers, that sort of thing. Yeah, Michael, you want to answer that one?
Sure. Yeah, sorry. As soon as I saw yes. So, we promote password management solutions as a regular part of our security stack. We include one for our clients because, of course, we recommend long and complex passwords. And any good password manager would certainly, have a password generation tool in there as well. We often recommend people using long passphrases, which is strings of words and things that are not, your kids' names, your birthdays, those types of things, or some sort of a password with an 01 at the end and a exclamation point somewhere in the middle. But giving you long and complex passwords that cannot be saved in browsers, and would be very difficult to crack by password cracking tools. The one that we use commercially for businesses, we use Passportal if you're looking for ones that you like. Yes, LastPass, which also just popped up in the screen, is the one that I think is the most widely recognized personal use one. We use Passportal because we can centrally manage that for people as well, and help them when they have challenges using the password manager, or if they lose their master passwords, etc. But yes, LastPass is a very popular one that folks use individually, that we see a lot of, and seems to be pretty stable and secure. Did that answer the question that was there? I see the kind of end of the sentence. How safe is this? These organizations, and I'm sure somebody from Perch can explain this better than I can, but the style and level of security and encryption that they use to secure their databases is pretty advanced, and difficult based upon the way the keys are created for that, and the folks that can get into those for someone that does not have those security keys to be able to access the passwords stored in there. Does someone from Perch want to add a more technical explanation to how secure this is?
Yeah, no, Michael, you nailed it. That's exactly right. I think everything you said is exactly right. We're huge fans of password managers, and for all the reasons that you gave. So yes, very well said. And then I do see this other question that just came in too. Are there any ways to protect your business cell phones, text messaging, et cetera? I'll say one thing, and then Michael, please add. One thing you do want to make sure of is we do occasionally see threats that are sourced because a bad guy does what's called a phone port. And what they mean by that is, and I've actually seen this happen. So what a bad guy will do is they'll call up your phone carrier and say, hey, this phone number that belongs to Sally Sue, I'm going to move it to me. And they say, okay, great. And they port the number. And so what they'll do is they'll do all the password resets that go to your cell phone. And I think many of you guys probably get those at like an SMS check. And that's really, really dangerous, right? Because then bad guys are able to reset your passwords, things like that. And a way to stop that, make sure that you have a PIN code set up with your cell phone provider, with your carrier, and that will prevent that. So anytime you get a new cell phone, or a bad guy says they're you and gets a new cell phone and wants to port, they're gonna have to know that code. So that's a big, big takeaway. Michael, anything else you'd add around cell phones and texting?
Yeah, the only real specific thing that we always talk about with regard to people who use their cell phones to personal cell phones, particularly to access business assets, but really any cell phones, is using a mobile device management software on there, which will allow you to segregate personal stuff from business stuff. So if you have games on the phone, if your children have games on the phone, if there are other things on there, you can segregate your business information from your personal information. And in the event that the phone is lost, you can do a remote wipe of that phone to make sure that any information that was on there is no longer accessible to whoever is now the new owner of your phone, because once it's gone, it's probably gone for good. So a mobile device management software like that is something that we recommend to folks who are using really any mobile devices against their business assets in some way.
I will add one thing on multi-factor authentication too. Of course, like everyone recommends multi-factor authentication to access some of these important accounts. But it is possible in more advanced phishing scenarios that a attacker could completely man in the middle of that connection and basically be prompting you to give them the multi-factor authentication code and then passing it forward to the service that requires the multi-factor authentication. So, definitely, even though we have multi-factor authentication, you still have to worry about phishing.
Absolutely. Okay, we are right up against the end of the hour. We had some fantastic questions in here today, so thank you everyone for all the participation. Thank you guys from Perch for a really cool demonstration and deep dive into what's really happening under the covers when somebody clicks on one of these malicious links. Continue adding questions and things. If you want to reach out, Amber is going to put her email into the chat. If you have additional questions that didn't get answered today or something that comes up later, you can send those off to her and we'll get you answers. Join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. for the 4th session on Respond and Recover of Crack the Hack. And we will be having a panel with a true life story about an organization that was breached. They did fall victim to one of these types of attacks. And we're going to have the victim there along with a potential threat actor type person, as well as a chief information security officer, to talk through this scenario about what happened, what could have happened, how it could have been prevented, and lessons learned. So that should be a pretty great interactive session tomorrow. Again, 11 o'clock for that. Now you want to go to the challenge, which is at cthevent.com, and go in, watch the videos, answer the challenge questions, and continue on with the contest. Keep up racking up those points and keep the interaction going. Amber, you have something to finish with?
No, I just was adding that Wes is going to be one of our panelists tomorrow. So
Wes is on the panel tomorrow, so you get to see
Yep.
his beautiful face again tomorrow. Thank you, Perch folks. Thank you, everyone, for spending your time with us today, and I look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great day.
See you guys.
bye, everyone.